In 1993, in Kaijin, Funabashi, on the outskirts of Tokyo, a grim discovery was made. Buried were the mortal remains of a couple, a man and a young woman. They were found embracing, their limbs still intertwined. Later, it was discovered that these bones were an impressive 7,000 years old. To put this into perspective, it means they are older than the Great Pyramids of Giza, or even Stonehenge. The only reason these bones survived Japan's extremely acidic soil for 7 millennia was the fact that they were buried under a mound of shells, known as a shell midden, right here on the grounds of the Tobinodai Museum. There was no sign of trauma or physical violence on the bodies. The cause of death might have been a harsh winter, a sudden illness, or a toxic meal. Just 3 kilometers north of here, at the Ubayama Shell Midden Park, another dead family was found. More recent, around 4,000 years ago. In that case, there were bones of fugu, the famous pufferfish, a lethal danger of the prehistoric and modern diet if prepared incorrectly. This might have been the cause of death in both cases, though it is impossible to be sure. In my research for this video, I discovered that these prehistoric sites, although concentrated here, don't exist only in this region. They are scattered all across Japan. But who were these people? Today, they are known as the Jomon. They lived in the Japanese archipelago starting 60,000 years ago and are among the world's first pottery makers. The name itself, Jomon, means cord marked and refers to the distinct pattern they pressed into the clay vessels they made. Unlike the typical nomadic hunter-gatherers of the time, the Jomon lived in organized, sedentary communities. They thrived for thousands of years thanks to the region's abundance and their seasonal mastery of hunting, fishing, and gathering of natural resources, all without relying on agriculture. So, what happened? Why did they disappear? My first visit to Hokkaido last year brought me several joys. Although I love the snow, it makes it impossible to travel here in the winter by motorcycle. If the main islands of the Japanese archipelago are beautiful, Hokkaido takes that to another level. The direct contact with nature here brought me to find the fleeting Shimaenaga, also known as snow fairies, and the Ezo fox, the Ezo deers, and the Ezo squirrels, among other animals. Ezo is the old Japanese name for Hokkaido. While I was there, I also found the Ainu. I grew up knowing the Ainu were the indigenous original inhabitants of Hokkaido, and how in 1899 the Japanese government passed the Hokkaido Aborigine Protection Act. Despite the name, it was basically forced assimilation, which stripped the Ainu of their land. They banned their language, outlawed their distinct cultural practices, and forced them to adopt Japanese names. Many Ainu families, faced with extreme social discrimination, poverty, and systemic exclusion, actively chose intermarriage as a survival mechanism. For decades, their identity was suppressed under a monocultural narrative. However, over the last few decades, this painful scenario finally began to transform. The turning point started in 1997, when the oppressive 1899 law was finally repealed and replaced by new legislation focused on the preservation and promotion of Ainu culture. Full recognition took a historic step in 2008, culminating in 2019 with the passage of a law that formally declared the Ainu as the indigenous people of Japan, guaranteeing them legal protection against discrimination and support for the revitalization of their heritage. The ultimate symbol of this recent rebirth was the opening of the Upopoi in southern Hokkaido. This large-scale complex houses the country's first national Ainu museum. So, why am I bringing up the Ainu if I was just talking about the Jomon? In recent years, scientists successfully extracted and sequenced the full nuclear DNA of Jomon skeletons. They discovered that indigenous Ainu people in Hokkaido and the Ryukyu people in Okinawa carry the highest percentage of direct Jomon genetic markers. Meanwhile, modern Japanese on the main islands possess around 10 to 12%. Japan's demographic transformation occurred through migratory waves that over the centuries displaced and absorbed the indigenous Jomon people. First came the Yayoi, between 1000 years before the Common Era and 300 years in the Common Era. Large waves of migrants from the Korean peninsula and the Asian mainland arrived in western Japan, bringing irrigated rice cultivation along with bronze and iron tools, quickly outnumbering the Jomon population. Next, between the years 300 and 700 of the Common Era, the Kofun wave occurred. A second migratory flow from East Asia arrived during the Yamato Imperial Era. They introduced centralized governance, advanced technology, and bureaucratic structures, forming the genetic foundation of modern mainland Japan. Among the many artifacts discovered at Jomon sites, the most famous are the dogu, small, highly stylized clay figurines. Alternative history writers popularized the ancient astronauts theory, arguing that prominent eyes and bulky appearance depict extraterrestrial visitors in spacesuits. In truth, they are most likely symbolic female figures wearing traditional snow goggles, very similar to those worn by indigenous peoples of Siberia and the Arctic. Notice, for example, this clip over a Siberian pop group, Otokan, with a member wearing those exact goggles. The idea that Japan was always an isolated monoculture of a single ancestry is a modern political construct, not a historical or biological reality. Genetics, archaeology, and history show the opposite. Modern Japan is the result of waves of migration and a deep cultural fusion. It is a striking paradox. At the exact moment science demystifies the idea of pure and static cultures, nationalism is rising again around the world. When life gets hard, the economy falters, and the future seems uncertain, societies tend to retreat into romanticized origin myths and seek refuge by blaming the other, the outsider, the foreigner. But returning to Funabashi, there is much more to this city than its Jomon heritage. It's an incredible place to visit and live. Just a 20-minute train ride from Tokyo Station. Besides beautiful parks and the large shopping malls like Lalaport, Funabashi hosts the largest IKEA store in Japan, spanning an impressive 44,000 square meters. For the basketball fans, it's also home to the Chiba Jets, one of the top teams in the B-League, based at the ultramodern Lala Arena, Tokyo Bay. One of the next stops is likely to be Ishikawa, the neighboring city. It's even closer to central Tokyo, and it's where Punch lives, the most famous monkey in the world. But that is for another time. Don't forget to like and subscribe if it's your first time here. Till we meet again, Matane.